All right, well, our next guest led the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency during the Trump administration. He then went on to approve various crypto-friendly regulations, including approval of a federal bank charter to crypto-native company Anchorage, as well as permitting banks to use stablecoins in payments. He then led Binance US as the crypto exchange's CEO, but after about 3-4 months, he's now a free agent. So joining me now is Brian Brooks himself. Welcome to the show, Brian. Great to see you in person.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Great to have you. So, yes, I mean, everyone, I want to know what happened at Binance US in that short tenure, about 3-4 months.
Look, there's only so much one can say in these contexts. It's a great company with a great team, and I think amazing potential ahead of it. I think, the thing about founder-led companies is that sometimes you have strategic differences, and it's like, look, there's a direction we can go to the right, and there's a direction we can go to the left. This is my vision. This is the founder's vision. At the end of the day, it's the founder's company. What I would tell you is I think I will have some exciting news, maybe to break on your show in a few days, possibly like in a week or so.
We'd love that.
So there'll be some cool things to come. But in the meantime, look, I wish these guys well. They're super competitive. They're well positioned to do well. Having said that, it's a really complicated environment out there, and you have to navigate it carefully.
Was there any concern that Binance was doing anything illegal or untoward or going down that path?
I would never have joined the company if I thought that what was going on wasn't defensible. I think it's more about how do you want to address those issues, and there are a lot of different ways of doing it. And at the end of the day, the founder had, I think, a different vision than I did about how to do that. Yeah, which is totally fine. He's an incredibly smart guy who's built an amazing global business. My view about navigating U.S. waters is a little bit different from his.
How does that differ?
I can't get into the details, as you can imagine. All I would say is lots of exciting things ahead, and that is a different conversation, which I think you'll like having.
I'm excited about the path ahead for you. Obviously, a lot of opportunities. But just one more thing, because when you joined on, there was a lot of excitement that a big U.S. regulator was joining a crypto exchange. But at the same time, we also, without much fanfare, saw the departure of Cathie Coley as CEO of Binance US. Not even a word, and nobody really knows where she is or what she is doing now. Any understanding or a word about the departures at Binance?
Yeah, I mean, look, when it comes to Coley, I had spent a fair amount of time with her on panels and things before I joined. I think she's a huge asset to the area, and my understanding is she's been actually at a couple of crypto conferences in the last 6 months. I think she was at ETH in Paris, for example, I heard. So I'm not sure what her strategy is. I think for a lot of us in the space who think that we have a really big idea that we want to get launched, the trick is to make sure to keep it under wraps until you're ready for the reveal. So I don't know, but if I had to guess, she's got something to reveal at some point, and we'll find out about that when it happens.
All right, and another departure that was a surprise to a lot of people was the CFO, Wei Zhu, and I don't know if you had any interaction with him, but he was also unceremoniously departed from the company.
Yeah, in the case,
which is a pattern, if you can see what I'm talking about.
Well, look, Wei was on our board briefly when I first joined, but of course he worked for Binance.com. He was not an employee of Binance US, so my interaction with him was just in the context of a board membership. I'm not sure what happened there, to be honest, but then again, in a really big company, if you looked at JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs, you could find 10 people who left last week, and each one is a good story. So I'm not sure what Wei's story is, but it was interesting when it happened, obviously.
Fair enough. All right. So exciting news for you. Now you're at Salt. A lot of crypto companies here, a lot of investors, hedge funds, and whatnot. So what kind of conversations have you been having? And perhaps you could give us a tease onto your steps going forward?
Well, here's what I would say. I think there are a couple of really interesting things here at Salt, Christine, mostly not having to do with the crypto companies, but with all the suits around here. So if you walked into the main stage yesterday, what you would see is
to the pullover ratio.
Totally. So the number of asset managers and compliance firms and hedge funds and others, the Wall Street Journal story that Steve Cohen, who I saw at drinks last night, is buying a crypto company. That's the news of Salt this year, okay, is that crypto is going mainstream. And what I'm really excited about, if I was going to give you a little bit of a tease, is I think that there are a lot of companies that are starting to invest in the infrastructure to make this stuff scale, right? So people are proud in our industry that we're a $2 trillion industry, but we should be a $15 trillion industry. And so how do we get there? How do we break out of this Bitcoin 50,000 sort of ceiling that we're at? And I think the answer is you need major institutional adoption, not one or two companies, but you need all the companies on that main stage to invest. And that means mainstream asset management. It means large-scale custody. It means crypto-native compliance solutions, not bank-native compliance solutions. And there are a bunch of companies innovating and building these things. So the question is, if you could be on top of one of those companies making the world safe for crypto, that's the tease, that could be awesome. So I think pigs and shells businesses of the future, and that's why the banks are here at this conference.
You know, that seems to be a thing among other regulators we've spoken to. For example, former CFTC chair Chris Collier saying that this is a new industry. It needs a new set of regulations, not based on rules and regulations that were made 100 years ago. And so regulators appear to be trying to figure that out now. Just going back to Binance for a second, they're going through a lot of scrutiny among global regulators around the world. I mean, a criminal complaint in Thailand, the UK financial regulators saying they're not authorized to operate. Ontario, same thing. Various countries all seemingly coordinating a global crackdown on Binance. Do you think that scrutiny is deserved?
Well, you know, there's the question about the scrutiny on Binance, which, you know, I can't speak to in those countries. And then there's the question of scrutiny of the industry, which I think is what Chris Collier was talking about. And I think one of the big issues that we face is you've got an industry that was born out of an idea that the regulations that exist for regular finance are constraining growth and freedom, which I 100% agree with. And then you've got a view on the part of the regulators that the state of nature is banking regulation and securities regulation, and any new thing you do has to fit within this. So the analogy I always give is what my friend Balaji Srinivasan used to talk about how when YouTube was launched, you know, there could have been a question of, should YouTube have to get a broadcast television license because they're distributing television content? Clearly not, right? They're not broadcasting on the airwaves. And yet, when bank regulators or securities regulators ask crypto companies how they're complying with bank regulations, the answer is, we're not doing banking, we're doing something really different. So I think that you need a framework that governments can live with, but the framework shouldn't be that nobody's allowed to do anything that doesn't fit within banking regulation, right? The framework should be crypto's a whole new activity, allowing people to interact in an entirely new and freer way. So what's the right way to make sure that people aren't getting defrauded while allowing them all the benefits? Don't protect me from 4% interest rates, okay? Let me get access to that in a way that makes sure I'm not defrauded. That's the way forward, and we got to work with the government to understand that settlement.
Right. Another issue is FSOC, the Financial Stability Oversight Council, is exploring whether or not they should really investigate stablecoins and whether or not they pose some sort of financial danger to the stability of the markets. During your tenure under the OCC, you had a different approach towards stablecoins. The guidance given to the banks was that they could actually use stablecoins for payments. So I wonder whether or not you view the value in stablecoins differently from the current administration.
Well, I mean, look, what is unfortunate is there's a little bit of crypto that's becoming political, right? And part of it is there's a freedom crowd which represents probably 55% of the Congress. I say that because look at the infrastructure bill. There were 6 or 7 Democrats on the side of the industry and about 49 Republicans on the side. That's bipartisan, but heavily weighted on one political side, right? Most of the other side wanted to tamp down on this the same way they want to tamp down on banks. So that's unfortunate. To me, the message to America is we didn't just discover stablecoins in this administration. The FSOC in the last administration, and the president's working group in the last administration gave comprehensive guidance about stablecoins, the purpose of which was to, on the one hand, protect buyers from fraud, but on the other hand, to allow people the advantages of stablecoins. And what I worry about is that in this environment, people have forgotten about the advantages, and it's all about a crackdown. So I think that's the mistake here. Fundamentally, remember, the OCC guidance that was released under my watch hasn't been rescinded. And that guidance wasn't just that banks can use stablecoins. It was that they can connect as validator nodes on things like the Ethereum network, right, to maintain those networks. And my message is small banks and mid-sized banks who feel like the big banks own the current payment system have a huge opportunity here as validator nodes on new networks to not be beholden to the biggest banks, but to free up capital and to free up access to payment systems for more people. That's what we were all about, is more freedom and more innovation.